Thank you for joining me here today. Today I am here with the lovely Kellie Kaminskas, and we are going to talk everything mental health and recovery. How are you doing today, Kellie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you. Where did your journey begin?
Well, in 2016, I lost my husband to a fentanyl overdose after a pretty rough 6 month relapse that he went through. So basically, since then, I have written a children's book about the journey of grief. We had a 1 year old son at the time. He's now 8. And it was really hard to find books for children about grief that weren't religious based, and to answer questions as they get older and older.
That is so hard. I can understand the family members in addiction part, but not the overdosed husband.
Yeah.
My condolences to you and the family, but what helped you get through it, even at the beginning stages?
Um, when he first had died, it's just a strange feeling to be a partner of somebody who is struggling with addiction. I feel like, when they first relapse and are heavy into the addiction, it's kind of like they already died. So you're already grieving the loss of the person that you married. So he wasn't really who he was anymore. So then you're tackling that on top of raising a newborn. It was very, kind of like life or death feeling. So when he did die, I feel like I had already grieved his death 6 months before. So it wasn't really like a shell shock anymore when he actually did pass away.
That must have been incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it was rough.
And it also makes me think back to when I was a raging alcoholic. It was through the late end of my teens and the beginning of my 20s. Yeah, I when my family noticed it was happening, I could see that I was now treated like the other members of my family with addiction, and
Yeah.
that okay, you're looking at the shell of what was.
Yes.
That's exactly how you're looking at me. I can see it in your eyes. And not yours, but theirs.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started having these nightmares of my own death that I was okay, the slippery slope has begun.
Yeah.
It's time to curb this.
Right.
But finding the support to get through addiction and to actually heal the underlying cause is the part that people are forgetting.
Yeah.
Addiction never comes from nowhere.
Right.
Like it's not, oh, you feel great on the inside and now you're using heavy drugs.
Exactly.
Like, oh, it's Tuesday. I just made $10,000. Let's
Exactly.
go do hard drugs.
Yeah.
No.
Let's ruin life.
Hey, like I'm doing great. Like let's cause a spiral that ruins my life.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
No mentally well off person goes out and does that.
No.
And to be on the other side of it, watching it happen, it it must have felt like when you're falling and life slow mos and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
What were the tools that helped you, like moment by moment, just be able to handle it a little bit more?
When he had died or during?
Either.
I think after he had died, I kind of was just like, I didn't have the option to fall apart because I had a little baby at home. So I think, I'm so thankful for him because he really, pulled me through having to take care of him and then, navigate life by myself wasn't the plan as a mother, but I kind of, got thrust into it and I had no choice. So I think it really probably saved my life having to, just be a parent and kind of
Right.
push everything else away.
And as you stated it, like not having the option of anything else but survival.
Yes.
And as terrible as that is, when there is no other option but through, it's a much more straightforward path from what
Yeah.
I've seen both
Yeah.
in my personal life and with clients. It's like, oh, I'm backed into a corner and there's only one way through. Okay, go.
Right. Yeah. There was no other choice.
And you know, as the clients, they're always a little bit shocked. You're like, oh, you do you want me to just do it? I'm like, well, yeah, I'll be here to support you through it, but yeah, just go do your thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and and that's one of the things we don't realize. We're all gonna go through it. The death of someone that was our world.
Hmm.
Generally, there's only one of those,
Right.
and just insurmountable hardship, or that's how it feels at the time, until you're on the other side of, I'm sorry I had to go through that, but I did it, and I'm okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully, we all get to a point where we're thriving, and as the child of someone that was a single mother, I I know how hard that journey looks on the other side of it.
Right.
It's like, no, you were struggling and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, I read a quote one day that was like, "Don't let your storms rain on your children." I just want him to have such a peaceful life. Things happen and not everything's always perfect, but the first year of his life was really hard because his dad was so sick, and I just want him to not have to feel hurt like that ever again. Even though he doesn't remember it, it's still your body remembers things.
Right? Well, and that could show up later.
Yes.
And it already sounds like you were preparing for that just in case it does.
Oh yeah, we've been in therapy for years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another one. Like, people go through extreme events and hardship, and then they shell themselves off from the world, too embarrassed to seek help.
Mhm.
Like, that's literally why it exists.
Yeah,
Why service professionals like myself are out here in the world. Like, no, we just want to hold your hand through it so that you don't feel like you're alone all the time.
right. I would go crazy. I love our therapists. My son goes individually, and I do as well, to the same woman, and she's like she becomes part of you because you're with them for so long. It's just really the best thing.
Right? I mean, even kids that I saw years ago when I was more frontlines in social work, that they're grown adults. They still message me about their wins, their struggles, and just express gratitude to me. And I'm like, I'm really proud you made it, but this was no longer a result of me. It's
Yeah,
all you, kiddo.
right.
Like,
But
and
it
I'm
was because you gave them those tools.
right. And yes, it definitely was, but I like to encourage them to take a little more account, like credit for their own survival, because I was really just a witness. I
Mhm.
wasn't the one living it. And sure, they cried on my shoulders for probably hours of their lives,
Yeah.
but that was my job, to support them and get them through the hardship.
Mhm.
Today, and now that you are more so on the other side of this, what are the tools that help you create a great day?
I just try to be very mindful, I feel like, of myself and other people around me. I think a lot of the times we really don't realize what people are going through every day. It was a big secret when he was actively using and nobody knew. And I can't imagine, where I am now if I had a friend going through that, them doing it by themselves because it's hell. And I did it by myself, and I look back now and I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I put myself, why didn't I tell anybody? Like, why didn't I ask for help? So I just really try to be mindful, of everybody every day. Like anybody could be going through so much stuff and we really just have no idea.
Exactly. And ironically, it's harder to get someone to open up and to get that support than it is to just go it alone at times.
Yeah.
Like even myself, through the worst years, did I reach out? Did I tell anybody?
No.
Did anyone know what was going on in my house? No.
Right.
I even had years in high school where teachers would call it out. Hey, we know that you are doing things that you shouldn't be. You're out at night, you were asleep in class, and you suddenly have all this money. What are you doing? You know what I'm doing. Do you want
Yeah.
to talk about it? And ultimately, I was fortunate in that they asked if I needed an out for my safety,
Hmm.
and when I said that that would only make things worse, they just went into full-fledged safety plan. If
Right.
at any point you need out, here are all your different ways. And no, I would prefer that no one was an underage sex worker,
Right.
but it also made me a better frontlines service worker and now a better clinician. Like being in the mental health sphere when you've literally done it all, it creates that much more like connectability between clients.
No, totally.
Like especially if they've read my books before they meet me, because then they're like, Reese, you've been through it all. You're really calm now. You actually seem like you're permanently stoned, even though you're not. I'm like, when you work through your crap, you become this calm. Like one of those wise old people that's friendly to everyone, even though they want to tell them off.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're not allowed to go around telling people off.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like, like I would like to embody my cat some days. Just run around the house screaming.
Thank
It's
you. Why is that not allowed?
right.
Should
Like
be.
that. No, in the confines of our own home, that should be socially appropriate.
Agreed. Agreed.
In this bougie neighborhood, I'm pretty sure someone would call the cops.
Probably.
There's too much screaming in that house. Somebody get an officer there.
Is it the cats?
Like, it's not the cat, it's the Reese. Well, and other than like the obvious of wanting to write a grief book that was not religiously based, what else inspired you to do it, and how did you write it?
So a year before my son's father passed away, my mom actually died too, of a really long cancer battle. So, I was going through being a new mom without my own. And then, my son's dad died too. And I was just like, I've always wanted to be a writer. That's what I went to school for. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. And it just popped in my head one day and I just like wrote it down in my note section on my phone. I think one night when he was sleeping in bed with me and the baby, and it just kind of happened. So I was just like, this needs to happen. It's just, he's so smart and he's like asked the wisest questions for a kid his age. And I'm just like, I need this for him. I need this for kids like him because, there are so many kids who don't have a parent and they're raised by a grandparent or they're raised by a single parent. And, death is a very taboo topic for children. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that it should be.
I love that because it is such a huge gap. I mean, even whether it is a young child losing a parent or whether it's just someone before they're an adult,
Mhm.
really that's all childhood, despite
Yeah.
how we want to categorize the different years. And no one is prepared for that.
No, of
When I lost my childhood best friend that was like a sister, that blew my entire world apart.
course.
And I was a functional wreck for
Hmm.
6 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, even like I would just sit in a corner and cry some days for years. Like I would take full days out of my life to just be in the sorrow. And yes, lack of a fully developed prefrontal cortex at the time, but also just I hadn't lost anyone of that magnitude. It
Right.
it wasn't a planned death or like an expected one, I mean.
Yeah.
Not like a grandparent. I had lost a great grand or three great grandparents at that point. Old people die. We love them, but it's expected.
Hmm. Yeah. Right.
Now I'm approaching 30 and I still have one set of grandparents.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm like, okay, you guys are getting old. Can you take care of yourselves, please?
Right.
I don't even like you. Can you take care of yourself?
Right. It's just one more thing. You're just like, oh.
Right? Like, I don't even want you around and I don't want you to die.
Course.
Which they might not appreciate that I don't want them around and they know. But I am that blunt. If whether you've seen me online or you've heard other episodes, I just say it.
Yeah.
Cuz life is too short to really hold back. And that is why even with my training, I stay in mental health because it's where I can make the biggest impact. Like no one deserves to live in their sorrow forever.
It's exhausting. Why tiptoe? Like, just hit it head on.
Exactly. Okay, well, this is hard, but what's the action plan to process and move forward? And I can see it. Like there's this sparkle in your eye, even though you've been through all that pain.
Mhm. It took a long time. I mean, even now, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's so different. I had two very different paths of grief at the same time.
Hmm.
Because I had given birth to my son 3 weeks after my mom died. So I didn't grieve her for a really long time, and I feel like the last year was more so like, okay, like this is it. It finally really came into fruition where I was like, I have to just deal with it because I can't sit in it anymore. It takes a really long time to lose a parent. It's a very different experience than losing a partner.
Right? And for me, I didn't fully process the grief of losing that best friend
Yeah.
until I read Bucked Off by Joyce Helwig, where this lovely widow recounts her life with her and her husband through all these stories. And it showed me that there was still all that love. There was still the history
Yeah.
and that I could let it go.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, within days, I had stopped drinking. And yeah, I eventually segued to like a harm reduction model. If as long as I'm not drinking to numb away pain, and it was only like one or two, I was fine.
Yeah.
But this August, 7 years sober.
It's great.
And frankly, if you would have told me that while actively drinking to numb every feeling in my body, I would not have believed you that I could get to a point where I don't need it and it's in my house and it's not an issue.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's like, oh yeah, there's a bottle there. Do I want it? No.
Great. It's just you're free. You're free.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. If you truly deal with the emotions that cause you to numb out or lead into escapism, eventually you do regain that freedom.
Hmm. Yeah. Totally.
What are some words of advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh gosh, to open my mouth. To not keep secrets and to not try to fix people that don't aren't ready to fix themselves. That'd be my biggest thing. I love very hard, and I think it hurt me a lot because I did, and I still love very hard, but now I have boundaries, and I know that I can't control other people's mental health, emotions, all of that.
That is excellent advice. And especially in today's day and age where we now know about boundaries and self respect, but as a society, we're just getting there on the implementation side of things. And to any of our young viewers, yes, love hard, but have great boundaries. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Kellie.